Hey everybody, like all great franchises, I must take mine into space! So now I present to you Matt the Pharaoh Wizard in space! Yep. Hey everybody, Sexy Matt the Pharaoh Wizard here. I finally saw the surprise, that is the Cloverfield Paradox. And if you didn't know, I'm a huge fan of the Cloverfield movies. I love the first one. I freaking adore the 10 Cloverfield Lane. And that started up this whole debate if, the two Cloverfield movies are connected or if it's an anthology series, what's going on there. I always claimed that they were connected. I have a bunch of ways that they can connect. And I always said that the third movie would finally cement if the Cloverfield franchise is an anthology series or if they're all connected. So, did the Cloverfield Paradox do that? What did I like? What did I dislike? Let's talk about it. The Cloverfield Paradox is brought to us by director Julius Ona, who did The Girl Is in Trouble. Okay. Although the last two directors of Cloverfield movies were also very small directors, so it follows that. So I don't want to get too detailed in the plot because all Cloverfield movies are surrounded by mystery and all sorts of spoilers. So I'm going to try and keep this spoiler free as much as possible. So the plot is there's a space station called the Cloverfield that's trying to create a new sort of energy to fix this giant energy crisis we're having on Earth, and something goes awry. That's it. That's all I can really say without spoilers, and that's what you can generally get from the trailer. So let's talk about the characters. So our main antagonist is Hamilton, played by Guru Mathaba Ra, which I probably butchered that. But she played Plumette in Beauty and the Beast, and also was in the Black Mirror episode San Junipero. So that's pretty cool. But she is pretty great. She, is an engineer on the space station, and had to leave her husband on Earth to go work on this project for as long as it took, with now without a real ending. There's a disconnect between them, and she has some really great moments, some really strong moments. She has this monologue at the end that's amazing. I'm going very broad strokes because again, don't want to spoil anything. So, but yeah, overall, she was fantastic. I really liked her. And then we had Schmidt, played by Daniel Bruhl, who played Baron Zemo and Friedrich Zoller. So he's known for playing evil Germans. Um, yeah, is he an evil German in this movie? We don't know. Could be a spoiler. He is really good in this. He is the main physicist on this space station, and the whole project is his baby, and you're not sure what's going on in his head and what's happening there. He plays it very close to the chest, and I like that. He's really interesting. I like what he did with this character. A lot going on underneath that you can really tell. It's really cool. And I got to mention Mundi, played by Chris O'Dow, who you might know from Bridesmaids, or he had a small cameo in Thor: The Dark World.
Hi. Could we get some wine, please?
Sure, I'd love some.
Richard, this is Darcy. What are you doing here?
And yes, I like to tie as many actors as I can to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so there you go. And he is our comic relief. And Chris O'Dowd's a very funny actor. I've enjoyed most of his work, and he's got this very dry, deadpan delivery. I like it. And he's not too overbearing in this. He's not trying to be silly or anything. He's needed when he's needed, and can dial it back when he needs to. And I like that. He does a really good job of that. Then I'd like to mention Jensen, played by Elizabeth Debicki, who was in The Man from U.N.C.L.E., as well as Aisha in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Evolution. More powerful, more beautiful, more capable of destroying the Guardians of the Galaxy. I think I shall call him Adam.
They all tie to the MCU. This is an unofficial MCU movie. No, but first of all, Elizabeth Debicki is a sofa king hot. Seriously, so hot. In this movie and in real life. Something about the Cloverfield movies have some of my favorite actresses in it, and yeah, really great. So anyways, she kind of appears on the space station, but we're not sure why, and it's part of the mystery. But again, like Schmidt, there's a lot going on below, underneath her skin. You're not sure what's going on. You're not sure what she knows and what she's getting at and all this cool stuff. I really like what she does there. Again, everyone acted just fantastic in this movie. I love the cast. Here's usually where I talk about the good and the bad and really get into my review, but there is something I got to mention as a neutral, and that is the release of this movie. So the first Cloverfield movie had this viral marketing going on, like websites you can go to, and like this poster that didn't tell you anything, and maybe Cloverfield wasn't even the real name, and what is this movie, and a lot of cool stuff like that, and was a big surprise. The second movie, 10 Cloverfield Lane, had a trailer 2 weeks before it was released and surprised everyone. And of course, this one had the trailer before the Super Bowl and was released right after the Super Bowl. So that only leads me to believe the fourth movie is just going to be J.J. Abrams breaking a window in your house and throwing a movie at you. I mean, that's the only way they can do it now, right? But yeah, this one actually appeared on Box Office Mojo as a theatrical release. And I was waiting for the surprise, like, they didn't just, like, do a normal release, right? And they still surprised me, so that was cool. But the bigger issue on this, and the thing that a lot of people are talking about, is Netflix as a central way to distribute movies. Between the Cloverfield Paradox and Bright, those are two theatrically, like, budgeted movies with big name actors that were released directly to Netflix. So it's beyond just being like a cheap, like direct to DVD style thing, and like these are like real movies. And can this take a bite into the theatrical movies and going to the theaters? Because I can just stay at home and not wear any pants and not have to deal with annoying people and watch a movie in the comfort of my own house, without dealing with all the theatrical stuff. But at home, at least for me, I find myself more distracted. Like I want to check my phone and go to the bathroom more and get some snacks, things like that. Where in theaters, I'm more focused on the movie. So kind of give or take. But it is an interesting thing that's starting to come up, is if Netflix can truly like take some of the theater movie or theater money. It could be interesting to see. That's a whole other video on itself, so let's get back into the review. So what does Cloverfield Paradox do well? So I'm going to go in very broad strokes because, spoilers. So no spoilers here. So all the Cloverfield movies are built on tension, that you don't know what's going on and, what can you learn, and you're not given the whole picture. And this one continues that tradition. It's very tense at times, and you get to see this buildup of a mystery going on, and I like that. I don't know if it's done as well as the other movies, but they do still continue that, and I like that a lot. And as I mentioned before, my character breakdown, all the actors are fantastic in this. It's a great group of people. In contrast to 10 Cloverfield Lane, which was only 3 actors for the entire movie, this one had a much bigger cast and a lot more going on, bigger picture-wise. So I picked the 4 that I connected the most with to talk about, but it does have a very big cast going for it. And finally, like I said, it's got the budget of a theatrically released movie, so the effects in this are actually really fantastic. There's some really good practical effects, and the digital effects are using sparingly. It doesn't look cheap at all. Like, this looks like it was released in theaters and moved to Netflix. And I like that a lot. It looks fantastic. It's a very, very good looking movie. But no movie is perfect. Where does Cloverfield Paradox fall short? Well, it is the big joke, especially in horror franchises, that when your franchise starts to die out, you go to space. And it really has happened before, and it'll probably happen again. Uh, so it kind of feels like that in a lot of ways. And it's not that horror movies in space can't work. Like movies like Alien and Event Horizon prove, I think, they can work. And it is the ultimate, like, you can't get out of this situation because you can't just walk out your spaceship. Uh, but I don't know if they've used the idea of space to its biggest advantage. I don't know if it needed to take place in space. I think they could have done something different with it. It feels more gimmicky, like the cheap ones that go in space, rather than using space to its advantage, like Alien did. Um, and maybe that's just me, but I didn't feel it used it to its advantage. And another thing, and this is just a nitpick, and it's just me, but when you're in space and you're not floating, I find it very annoying. You're in microgravity, you should be floating. And they didn't do that at all. Yeah, they show like parts of the space station spinning, so it's supposed to simulate gravity. And so they kind of explain it that way, but it just kind of bugs me. Of course, I say this as a big Star Trek fan, so at least I'm inconsistent. Now, most of my biggest complaints are very spoiler heavy, so let's just go ahead and do that. So throw up the spoiler sign now. We're going to do some spoilers, so jump to this time code here if you want to skip spoilers, because we're doing some spoilers now. So the overall biggest question, does this tie into the other movies, or is it an anthology? It didn't answer that. It didn't do that because the monster from the first movie appears at the end of this one. And that bugs me a lot. So my working theory now is they're completely separate movies, and that monster was just fan service. It really breaks any links that the other movies had with each other. Because if it was like a prequel and you were working on the theory that if you're coming into this movie, or if you're coming into this section and you haven't seen the movie, the problem that happens is the space station jumps dimensions, and that's where everything goes awry. So if you're working under the theory that when they jump dimensions, that's what caused the aliens from the first two movies to happen, it doesn't quite work out, because they painted this whole world of this energy crisis and all this craziness going on that's basically tearing the world apart, wars and all that, because of this energy crisis. That's not really the world that was presented to us in the first movie. It was just our world. Same with the second movie. So it doesn't quite hold water as a prequel. And as a sequel, it doesn't work either, because you would think if, that giant monster destroyed New York, we would at least be aware of where it's at and wouldn't be surprised. And everyone on Earth is very surprised about this, destruction. And if it's a different creature of the same breed, you still would, like, they're like, oh, don't have them come here when those are out there, and there's something along those lines. Like, they say those, but you think if this giant beast destroyed New York, they would at least name it, so it'd at least be like, hey, watch out for the Chazwazzer. He's coming down. Like, there's some Chazwazzers here. Like, they didn't do any of that. So I think it was just a cheap twist to not do that, and it really broke any ties to the other movies. I really don't think they connect anymore. I'm now in the boat of it's an anthology series. They don't really connect. It's got themes that connect, but not really connecting. But I will give you a secondary theory that a friend gave me, and we will call it the Luna theory. Because, Luna, like the moon, and they're in space. The person that gave me the theory will get that joke. Anyways, her theory is that these movies are all in the same universe, but take a long time apart, a few years in between. So basically that the invasion from the second movie led to this energy crisis in the third movie, kind of being tying in all together. And I can kind of see that, and it sort of works, but then that breaks the ties between Cloverfield and 10 Cloverfield Lane, because if my theory initially was that they happened at the same time, that they dropped the monster in New York, and then they sent out these smaller patrols throughout the more rural areas. But if you were to say these took place years apart and it's a progression, one, you think, again, they would have named that monster, wouldn't have been surprised about him. And two, in the second movie, when John Goodman tells the girl, like, there's been an attack, she wouldn't have been all surprised, and she'd be like, oh, yeah, it's probably another one of those fucking monsters. Not to tear apart this theory, it's got its merits, but it's going to start some good debates, for sure. Now, my main big complaints about this movie in the spoilers is the fact that a spaceship jumping dimensions and crazy shit happening is fucking played out. I'm tired of it. Of course, the biggest tie to this one would be Event Horizon, that did this literal plot line before and did it better. But also, Star Trek Discovery just finished a storyline dealing with this exact situation. So it's just like, oh, we're doing this again. And when the event happened and the Earth disappeared and everyone's like, oh, where are we? Trying to find. I was like, you're in another dimension. Like right away, like, no, you're in another dimension. Yeah, the Earth's not there because you're in another dimension. Like it wasn't a surprise and it wasn't interesting. It's just been done so many times before, and it just felt weak. And I think that's my biggest complaint. And there are like these weird things happening on the ship because we're in this other dimension, but they didn't paint this other dimension like a weird hell dimension like in Event Horizon. It was basically our dimension, but slightly different, where they failed and the world is tearing itself apart with wars. But then, like, why was that guy's arm walking around when it was chopped off? And why were the worms inside that other guy? Like, it made the weird stuff happening made no sense, and they didn't really try to explain it, and it didn't work as a mystery either. It just felt really flat and short. I really didn't care for that. So yeah, this video is already going very long, so let's just go ahead and wrap this up. So in the end, the Cloverfield Paradox is serviceable. I think it follows the average franchise run where, the first one's good, second one's amazing, third one is less than stellar. I feel like this one falls in that. It's, it's okay. It's not that great, though. 10 Cloverfield Lane is a hard movie to follow. It was so good. And this one just does not live up to that at all, and doesn't even live up to the first one. Really, the best way to characterize it is that it's a less good version of Event Horizon. Now, usually here's where I give you my rating of, if you see it in theaters or not, but obviously it's not in theaters. So what I would say is, if you enjoy the Cloverfield franchise, this is worth checking out to see where it goes from there and to develop your own theories. Also, if you enjoy sci-fi horror movies, this is another great addition to that. But outside of that, if you don't like either of those, this isn't really your movie. So yeah, that's the Cloverfield Paradox. And maybe that's the real paradox, as if these movies are all connected or not. We don't know. So let me know in the comments below your theory if this movie ties to the other movies. Leave some extra space for spoilers in case people are looking at the comments and don't want spoilers. What do you think of the Cloverfield Paradox? Let me know in those comments. And hit this thumbs up if you agree with me or disagree, because I just need more thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you feel like, or if you haven't already. I don't know, whatever. Do it or not. I don't know, whatever. You do what you're gonna do, man. Do what you're gonna do. So I'm Sexy Matt the Pharaoh Wizard. Until next time, hold on to your hold slots.